So I'd like Neela ma'am to give him a token of honor. So, and I was talking to Saurabh. I'm sure you've read these books. Thank you, sir. Thank you once again. So, Slaughterhouse. So, Slaughterhouse 5 is a story about stories. It's about how experience is turned into art and how beauty becomes horror. It's about how something beyond expression can be expressed in a way no one had thought of before. In particular, and I'm quoting again, it's how one very funny but damaged writer turned a catastrophic loss of human life into a novel that can just save about your faith in humanity. What he had seen made the human race itself seem ugly and worthless, but it was a narrative that had to be told in order to save himself. I'd like to invite Natasha ma'am to discuss this.
Thank you, Mohit. Here I would like to talk about the narrative of the book. Kurt Vonnegut was one of the most far-reaching, influential American writers in the 20th centuries that we have come to know from Dr. Ghosh. Vonnegut was admitted as a great master of postmodern writer. He was skilled in writing miserable stories in comic form and sneering at the crazy society in the face of despair and disaster. Majority of his works were a mixture of autobiography and fiction. Vonnegut used to experience a period of heart-rending army life as an American prisoner during World War II. He was imprisoned in Dresden, witnessing its perishment, which had a profound influence on his later works as a survival from Dresden bombing. The most typical novel was Slaughterhouse 5. Slaughterhouse 5 is also called the Children's Crusade, a duty dance with death. Vonnegut depicted a leading figure, Billy Pilgrim, who also experienced the firebombing of Dresden as a prisoner, as well as a survivor of the awful slaughter in the novel. Therefore, this novel was deemed to Vonnegut's autobiography by some scholars. An absurd journey, or more accurately, an almost frantic time travel of the protagonist Billy Pilgrim was described in the novel. Vonnegut skillfully created a novel about the time travel of Billy, who shared the identical traumatic experience in World War II with that of Vonnegut's. Firstly, the author adopted deftly non-linear narrative strategy to narrate Billy's leaping life experience, including the wartime prison in Dresden, the after-war home in America, and the utopian planet Tralfamadore, through frequently shifted perspective and chaotic time-space view to expose war's absurdity and cruelty. What's more, the author also cited quantities of fragmental passages or sentences from different sources to reveal the nature of war in an indirect way. Except for these two distinctive narrative features, Vonnegut also created a new text on the basis of imitating some original religious stories, such as The Pilgrim's Progress of John Bunyan. Then he also applied the new text to an inappropriate or a totally contrary context to improve the effect of irony. All in all, these features are the unique manifestation of non-linear narrative, collage, and parody which all originated from postmodern metafiction. For one thing, metafiction always prefers to directly inform readers that its author is making up a story. For another, the narrator always occurs in the novel in various capacities, even as the close company of the protagonist. Vonnegut had to search for a new axis to reflect the cruelty of the Second World War to avoid turning the novel into traditional reminiscence. The tragedy of Hiroshima is universally known, while Dresden's secret is rarely acquainted by people. Comparing with atomic bombing of Hiroshima, Dresden bombing is more brutal and ruthless. Based on the misery of Dresden, Vonnegut used to intentionally make a special introduction of Slaughterhouse 5, describing as Please pay attention to this because I really like this about the whole speech that I have given. The Dresden atrocity, tremendously expensive and meticulously planned, was so meaningless. Finally, that only one person on the entire planet got any benefit from it. I am that person. I wrote this book, which earned a lot of money for me and made my reputation, such as it is. One way or another, I got $2 or $3 for every person killed. Some business I'm in. This is what the author is saying. He witnessed the occurrence of the bombing, therefore his comments about the war were more authentic and credible than other reviews. However, the bombing left him no benefit but everlasting pain. This unavoidable sorrow laid a foundation of his non-linear narrative. Vonnegut's self-discussion and self-reference made a breakthrough in traditional novels. Vonnegut, as an author, a character, and a narrator, separately intervened the narration of the novel. He worked as a narrator to tell readers Billy's chaotic time travel appearing both in the novel and out of the novel. Meanwhile, he purposely placed himself into the first chapter and the last chapter, becoming a character in the novel. About the firebombing of Dresden, Vonnegut did not offer his opinions or materials relevant to the bombing directly. Instead, he borrowed some official sources which mainly refer to a Truman statement and a record of the population in Dresden. Both two pieces of quotation seem to be irrelevant to the content of the novel, but actually these official documents made excuses to wage war and made emphasis on the inevitability of death. We all know about this prayer that was mentioned in this book. I'm mentioning it again here. The prayer on Billy's office in the 3rd chapter, which says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom always to tell the difference. Every word of this piece of prayer discloses regrets and helplessness to life. As the prayer said, resignation to fate was a kind of wisdom. That is, struggling against fate is meaningless, and acceptance of death, war, or other miseries is the right attitude. After reading, readers might feel the insignificance of human in the face of destiny. In addition, it also reflected that Vonnegut's spirit got caught into desperation after war. Here are some parodies used in Slaughterhouse 5. The Pilgrim's Progress, written by John Bunyan, is one of the most remarkable religious novels. One part of the novel is about Christian's journey to Celestial City, and the other part tells the travel of Christian's wife, Christina, and her children to Celestial City. The allegorical tale depicts the leading character Christian's spiritual journey and struggles from unbelief and sinfulness to salvation and glory. Careful readers could find that Billy Pilgrim in the novel shares the same word pilgrim with the Pilgrim's Progress. It is not a coincidence, but deliberation. In fact, Vonnegut skillfully uses the word pilgrim to shorten the distance between Christian and Billy. However, unlike Christian, Billy Pilgrim had a journey to an exoplanet, Tralfamadore, to look for ways to run away from the world that he did not have courage to face. Being caught in painful memories in the bombing of Dresden, Billy could only relieve himself from misery through a time travel to escape from death and war. Generally speaking, Celestial City is to Christian as Tralfamadore is to Billy. What's different is that Christian searched a way to Celestial City for his belief in God, but Vonnegut escaped to a fictional planet from violence and war because he lost his belief. In Slaughterhouse 5, Vonnegut parodies Jesus Christ too. As Jesus was mocked by soldiers and passers-by, Billy was laughed at by his comrade in arms during the war. Another important point was that Billy bore a striking resemblance to Jesus' death. Billy knew exactly the time when he died and the killer who murdered him, as the novel showed. Even Jesus told his followers he knew who was murderer in the Last Supper. After crash, Billy seemingly experienced a newborn. In the Bible, the king slaughtered all the children below 2 years in order to kill Jesus in Bethlehem. Jesus, like Billy, was the only one who escaped from death. To some extent, Billy and Jesus overlap. Moreover, Jesus' death was a sacrifice. However, Billy's death valued nothing. Though Billy preached some new concepts about time and life, which learned from Tralfamadorian to attempt to change people's opinion about their life, it was in vain. What Billy acquired in Tralfamadorian was negative acceptance or evasion to death, because all the difficulties could be explained in one sentence. So it goes. In conclusion, Vonnegut told a miserable story about a survivor's post-war life in the perspective of a bystander so that it could alleviate his pain. The appearance of So It Goes fully reflected the author's helplessness and irony to reality and revealed the novel's themes, loss of humanity and hatred to wars. Thank you.